What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in to another Epic 7 video. In this one, let's do an updated guide for 2023. A lot of stuff got changed, revamped, quality of life on how to get the best end game gear. So there's a lot of like early game gear, guys, that you can use to accelerate your path, adventurer's path, free 78s from early raids, dungeons, whatever. But let's focus on the end game gear, the gear with the best potential. You still got to roll it well, you know, so there's still some luck involved, but this will give you the highest chances as they roll well. They start with higher stats, and they're the end game gear that you want to gun for. So we're going to talk about the 88s, where to get them, which ones to get, as well as talk about a few other methods on top of that on just getting that premium endgame gear that's going to last you forever. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, y'all, let's talk about the Asmocolis of Cycle. There's now a normal mode and a nightmare mode. This whole raid labyrinth has been revamped pretty recently here, so we'll try to break it down quick and easy for y'all. Essentially, guys, there's two types of rewards, right? There you have the random drops here, as you can see, and in the normal mode, a lot of these are randomized, right? As you go through, some from trash mobs, some from bosses. And then in the nightmare mode, you actually get better drops here. But don't worry if you can only do normal. I'll tell you why. It's not too big of a deal. But just understand, right, in the nightmare mode, of course, you have some nicer pieces of gear that can drop with better substats, etc. But let's jump back to the normal mode and jump in. And I want to guide y'all on why, of course, you should be already doing this if you haven't already, even starting on normal if you can't do nightmare mode yet. And trust me, nightmare mode is a huge pain in the butt. But even in normal mode, guys, the shop stays the same. And so you still use this currency, the Queen's Guard badge, to buy these items. Now, in the beginning, we only had these two 88 pieces. All right, before this recent revamp, you had this speed sword and this immunity chest, which are both amazing, right? They start with high substats, being an 88 piece of gear. Take note of that, guys. We're going to talk a lot about 88 gear today. And both of these have been amazing since the beginning of the game, like I mentioned. However, they might have gotten power crept just slightly, as we have new introductions here with this effect resist set ring with effect resist main stat, and this penetration set necklace with a crit damage main stat. So I think this necklace overall is amazing and the one you should be gunning for a few reasons, right? A lot of y'all will be playing playstyles that need penetration set almost. A lot of DPS units, I shouldn't say almost, but a lot of DPS units are going to want this. Some of y'all may know that already. And a lot of y'all are crafting this already through your Artena crafting event, which we'll cover a little bit later. We might touch on that a little bit. But this is just so good. The substats are near perfect for most units. And depending on how it rolls, we can kind of just tailor it to a lot of different styles. So I think this is your #1 priority. Grab as many of these as you need, and then start looking into the rest. This ring, for example, is amazing too, but not every unit is going to want effectiveness and effect resist on the same stat set, and so depending on how this rolls, right, it could be kind of awkward to use. Now, the speed sword has been very good for a long time, but in all honesty, this is probably getting, knocked down a peg or two. Definitely get the penetration neck set first, and honestly, I think even the immunity chest nowadays might be better, as a lot of y'all are already farming Wyvern anyways, so speed sets in general aren't going to be as difficult, and a lot of y'all that aren't farming, let's say Asmanac or A13, may want an immunity set for some PvP scenarios, and this chest is still one of the best. All right, but regardless, this is like our first set of how to get very good gear. Of course, you have to roll it well, but the base stats start at the max for an 88, and they roll very well as well. So don't neglect, guys. Do your raids and pick up those pen set next, at least at first, okay? The next set of gear we're going to talk about is gained from Ancient Inheritance, a mode that wasn't added too long ago, but we definitely need to talk about as it's been run now quite a few times, and it is a guild co-op functioning or focused raid mode that you want to be in an active guild for. So just a quick shout out, guys, if you do need a guild, I run a bunch of them, and they're usually looking for active members, so go hit me up on my Twitch stream or just stop by the Discord, ask around, and see if we're recruiting at the moment. But you definitely need to be doing this, and you definitely want to be in an active guild, as if you don't clear all the bosses or all the just areas, you're going to miss out on some more. So let me scroll through down here. In case you weren't familiar, I dug up the oldest, I think this is the original Ancient Inheritance mode. They're just talking about all the basics of how it works. But long story short, I mentioned it's a guild co-op focused event. You're going to work with your guild mates, clear enemies, get a lot of rewards, random rewards, not just gear, but the real kicker here, since our video is focused on endgame gear, look at this. 88 pieces of gear that have max stats. I want y'all to take note, because we're going to look at arena gear probably next, and I want y'all to take a quick note on how the substats roll. Don't focus too much on substats if you're newer right now. A lot of y'all watching probably already understand the general rule of substats and things like that. But as you can see on the 88 gear, guys, compared to other pieces of gear, not only does it start higher, right, just base, compared to, like, let's say an 85 or lower level sets of gear. It also will have higher max ranges of rolls. So there's a few weird things which I'll cover here. We talked about the Nightmare Raid gear, now the Ancient Inheritance gear. These 88s will have the maximum range of rolls, meaning they'll start base at the highest range compared to other pieces of gear. And when you continually roll the substats, right, up to 5 substats, bonus rolls, we'll get the max range of rolls as well. So just a quick note here, at the first season, we had some very good sets here. Speed, health, with very, very nice substats that are all on the higher ranges, or highest ranges, I should say, and all with relevant subs. You know, some of them better than others, but generally, you'll just have to see which units would want this, but it's just showing you that this is like the premium gear that you can get. So make sure when Ancient Inheritance rolls around, you have a guild set up, they know what they're doing, or at least have some kind of idea, so that you're at least getting some of the rewards, if not all of them. All right, very important, guys. This happens multiple times a year. You got to be ready. Unfortunately, it's not always a thing, and the schedules are kind of weird on when Smilegate tells us when they're happening, but just be ready, as this is one of the best ways to get endgame gear. Next set of 88 gear we're going to talk about, guys, is from the Arena, the Conquest Points. I'm going to show you all the 2 most recent I bought, as we're going to talk about examples on what changed here and what you guys should be picking up. So this new speed set, boys, this is the 2 that I picked up. They rolled pretty good, some of them okay, but the necklace and the helmet in particular, I think, have great substats. So if you were looking to buy this season, I would start with those 2. But let's go back to the shop, and I want to talk about here in detail what got changed. So let's take a look at this sword here. Arena gear, unlike the stuff we just looked at, the Ancient Inheritance, the Hell Raid, or the Nightmare Raid, for example, as y'all noted on 88 gear, hopefully noted that the substats started higher, right, with the exception of speed. But the substats, if this was from Ancient Inheritance or from the Raid, it would be like 9% health, 9% attack, etc. So the ranges of gear on Arena gear for the longest time have always been poor. They don't roll like true 88s. A lot of people just end up rolling crappy pieces of gear. One, because it seems like a lot of the subs often miss. Smilegate loves putting effect resist randomly on like offensive pieces, for example. But in general, right, the fact that they have like weird subs, as well as their ranges are lower than other 88s, they're not true 88s. They often rolled poorly, and a lot of people just weren't big fans or felt like it was kind of a waste of points. Now things got revamped a little bit, guys. They got buffed quite a bit. As you can see here, speed is actually at 5, which is equivalent to a true 88, and I think health, attack, and effectiveness were in some previous sets would be lower, like at 6%. They're not at the 9% like a true 88, but I believe, because I think I rolled this and is what I've been told, that now they roll up to the highest range of true 88s, meaning we could roll 9% on the health, for example. And I think my helmet here that I was showing y'all, or something, I think the necklace, one of them hit a max range roll. So I'm pretty sure now these can have much higher ranges of rolls, and the fact that they raise the floor of the substats in general just make these a lot more viable for endgame gear. They're going to feel a lot better to roll, so definitely pick those up when you can. Still get the slate as well, but remember, this is a gearing guide, so just understand Arena gear much better now. Definitely look into it. You want to be buying this piece, go for the pieces that have substats that are, you know, usually cohesive, universal, meaning they can work on a lot of different units, and then ones that you specifically need at the moment. My suggestions are the helmet and the necklace, at least for this roll around. I'll probably end up picking up most of them though. Okay, moving past the level 88 gear, let's talk about one of these events like the Ancient Inheritance that's not always running, but it does run multiple times a year, and you want to take full advantage when it comes around, as it's going to be one of the best ways. Just guarantee yourself, or 99% guarantee yourself, a great piece of gear. I say 99% because obviously this one, you're going to have to try to roll it, and of course you're going to have to pick the right substats, right set, and then after that you want to make sure you roll, or try to roll it pretty well, which is all just luck anyways. But even if you do end up rolling it low, the fact that you picked hopefully the right subs and good subs means even if it rolls low, it's going to be a great piece of gear. You'll find some use for it, especially the newer you are. So I'm not going to go into the full details, guys. I have a guide on this on my main channel, but generally you want to just, it's an event that lets you pick the set, the main stat, and the piece of gear it's going to be on. So general rule of thumb, always pick a right side piece of gear, necklace, ring, or boots. Some people will say like a ring or neck is more efficient than boots because of the crafting cost. Whatever it is, just make sure you pick a right side piece and you'll be fine. Second step, I would start with, at least if you're newer, endgame players, I'll give a quick tip if you're a veteran or returning player, but newer players, just try to pick as universal of a set as possible. That way, whatever this piece of gear is, if it rolls low, you put it on a lower piece of unit or a unit that outgrows it, right? You can just swap it around, as it'll have a lot of different units that want this set and the subs that you're going to roll. So pick something like speed set, in my opinion, just to be safe. Pen set is probably really good too if you guys want to start venturing into sets that maybe you don't farm as much, so like torrent, injury, pen set, things like that. You can do that, but I would start with a just general good set. Speed, if you're a counter player, go for counter, etc. And then just make sure you roll for a piece, right? The substats, so we said right side gear, pick a good set, and then the subs, make sure you just try to pick something universal. So avoid flat stats, try to go for as many percentages as possible. And then if you're going for DPS, right, pick something with attack, crit damage. If you're going for a Soul Weaver or Knight, which I would actually try to prefer to DPS, use a DPS piece of gear here, but that's going to be up to you. You know, crit damage, attack for DPS with obviously speed, and then if you're going to go for a tank or a Soul Weaver, go for things like health, defense, speed, effect resist, etc. There's always going to be variations, guys, on depending on if it's bruiser, that's health scaling, defense scaling, you might want certain things, but I would try to go for broad, like I keep saying, universal. Try to pick a piece. There's going to be more generalist Soul Weavers, Knights, more generalist damage dealers that aren't going to be like specific, you know, no crit, only health, etc., things like that. So in the beginning, just try to pick universal pieces, and then as you get further and get more gear, you can specialize and actually cater. But just avoid flat stats, never craft left side gear. That's going to be a great rule of thumb just to start, and make sure you take advantage. Don't settle, right? Go till the very end of the event if you have to, because these always last quite a while, I think a few weeks usually, and then you're going to just want to use those points that you're going to accumulate from running just playing the game, usually from hunts and things like that, and try to get a good set of subs, okay? So don't settle. Take advantage of this. One of the best way to get end game gear. All right, and last but not least, and this could be arguably be one of the most important, as this is how you're going to get the bulk of your rolls, as right with the Conquest gear, the Nightmare Raid gear, the Artena crafting event, those are all either seasonal, you might have missed them, or they're very few in actual amount. This is one where you guys are going to be able to farm a lot if you take advantage and get as many of these as possible. So let's talk a little bit about this, but just like I said, this is kind of a roundup video. If you want more specifics as to where to get as many of these as possible every month, every week, check out my main channel and look for my equipment conversion gem guide, something about gearing. But yeah, let's break this down real quick. So these equipment conversion gems, in my opinion, are, besides those seasonal events, the best way by far to guarantee yourself getting gear in Epic 7. In Epic 7, rolling gear, as we all know, can be such a pain. Sometimes you'll go months without getting like something good, at least in your eyes, something good. But we want to limit that RNG, right? Because the rolls, starting with good subs, just all that stuff makes it kind of a headache, where if you're just not super lucky, a lot of times the piece will just miss. It's not to your liking. Equipment conversion gem is going to cut out a lot of that, right? The scuffed stuff, where we remove the RNG and maximize our potential. This is probably the best way, besides those event pieces that come predetermined rolls. Essentially, guys, what it does is it lets you pick, right, the actual stat, the main stat that's going to roll on your gear. So as you can see here, I have a lot of gems from different types. The blues are going to be like the flat stats, so flat speed, flat attack, health, defense, going to be for like left side gear, for example, or boots. And then for the percentages, right, these can go on whatever you want. Let's say, for example, health percent, we want to roll like a health percent ring, an attack percent ring, a crit chance neck, crit damage neck. All that stuff is how you're going to use these equipment conversion gems for. So long story short, equipment conversion gems are going to be your path to getting gear by cutting out a lot of the RNG. So these are so valuable, guys. Anytime you see them, if your endgame goal is to get good gear to play in higher level PvP, this is something that you want to just make sure you get a lot of and don't miss out. So I cover all the ways to get them, but just to name a few: Holo Trials, expeditions every month, guys, in some of the guild shops. I believe in the Transmit shop, you want to pick up the maximum amount weekly, daily, events, monthly, and just maximize these and start rolling these like crazy, as there's a bottleneck on the manifestation stones on reforging them to 90, but regardless of that, you'll get them eventually by farming hunts. This is going to be your best way to maximize your chances of getting endgame gear with substats that you want, that you're happy with, because as we all know, just getting random drops from hunts and praying to God they roll well is just a crapshoot in the dark. It almost never goes well. Maximize your chances, boys. Don't miss out on these equipment conversion boxes, okay? So let's wrap it up there. Hopefully this helps you guys out. I know gearing can be a pain. A lot of y'all want quality of life updates from Smilegate. They are doing things here and there, but in terms of just getting good gear in general, you got to diversify, go through all the modes I talked about, and especially equipment conversion gems as well. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.